Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the other side of this game, and that is, of course, the Ohio State side. And as I just said a minute ago, sometimes the more interesting side of things is in the losing locker room. I don't know that I believe the more interesting side in this game is in the losing locker room. I think it's actually Oregon in the Pac-12 and what this win means for them. But what happened at Ohio State is not nothing either. And it needs to be discussed and it needs to be broken down because there are some trends that I'm starting to see that are worrying me a little bit. And in the smaller picture, look, I don't want to overreact, right? Like for any of you that are sitting out there saying, Torres, take a chill pill, relax. First of all, I don't know if people still say take a chill pill, but if they do, like I get where you're coming from. It's not as though Ohio State has never lost a football game before. It has happened, and I think the program's doing all right just fine, despite a loss here or there over the last 100 years. There have been years where they lost a game and made the Big Ten championship game, won the Big Ten, lost in the regular season and made the college football playoff, even lost in the regular season and won the college football playoff in 2014. So it's not as though Ohio State has never taken a loss this time of year and rallied to come back. What I do think is also indisputable, though, is that there really are some kind of disturbing trends, if you're an Ohio State fan, that are starting to develop. It wasn't just Saturday. It wasn't just even this season, but dating back to last year, there's some things going on in that program that I don't know how you can be comfortable if you're an Ohio State fan. First of all, just in the micro of Saturday, it really goes back to what I said a minute ago. I can't ever remember, outside of last year against Alabama in the national championship game, an Ohio State team just looking like the inferior team on the field physically and athletically. Oregon, yes, the stats speak for themselves. 7 yards per rush, which is a stunning stat that I could have never imagined. But beyond that, it was just how it looked when you watched. Oregon was faster. Oregon was more athletic. They were stronger up front. Their offensive line bullied Ohio State's defensive line. And I don't know how you can't sit there if you're an Ohio State fan and have a kind of a come-to-Jesus moment where Oregon was just the better team. And I know I just talked about it with Oregon, but it's worth repeating here. There are games where good teams lose and weird stuff happens. There's a fluky call. There's a bad targeting penalty. You can go into a million different things. There was nothing fluky about what Oregon did on Saturday, and that in and of itself has to be concerning to an Ohio State fan. But to take it a step further, it is kind of a metaphor for what has happened really over the last year or so, dating back to last season. Now, obviously, look, we know what happened with the Big Ten last season. Weird year. They start late. COVID, games canceled, games this, games that. But let me just take you to the last 5 games for Ohio State, dating back to last season, and I want to see if you guys notice a trend, okay? Start the year off really well, dominate Penn State, take care of Indiana at home, get to the Big Ten championship game. What happens to the Big Ten championship game? Well, they beat Northwestern. They beat them 22-10. But if you watch the game, they were down 10-7 at halftime. Rallied, beat Northwestern, win the Big Ten, make the college football playoff. Okay, so that's one. Then they make the college football playoff. To their credit, take care of Clemson, although I will say they obviously had some major bulletin board material. If you remember, Dabo voted Clemson number 1 or whatever. They voted Ohio State number 10, and he basically said, like, yeah, they don't deserve to be here. They didn't play any regular season games. Why are we like? So there was real bulletin board material coming into that game, this off the Big Ten championship game where they were trailing against Northwestern at halftime. Get to the national championship game, get destroyed by Alabama. Okay, Alabama may be historically great. We'll see what happens. Let's not take too much from that game. Then there's this year with a game against Minnesota to open the season. Yes, you win, but you're actually trailing in the third quarter. Physically, Minnesota seems to be in the trenches, able to move the ball on you. I'm not going to compare it to Oregon, but Mo Ibrahim was awesome. He gets hurt. You kind of pull away, not coincidentally, when Minnesota's best skill position player gets hurt. And then there was Saturday where they got absolutely dominated by Oregon. And so, again, let's just look at the big picture of those 5 games. Do you notice a trend in those 5 games? Against Northwestern, trailed at halftime, came back to win. Take care of Clemson, get destroyed by Alabama. Minnesota, third quarter, they are trailing, And against Oregon, they just get completely dominated. Because if you don't notice a trend, I notice one. That is that Ohio State is not taking care of anybody the way that they used to, let alone that the teams that they're supposed to. And that's not a knock on Oregon, who I think might be the third best team in the country behind Alabama and Georgia. But it is instead a reality that Ohio State is not dominating teams the way that they used to. And to take it a step further, it appears as though there is one specific element on this team that is really starting to concern some people around Ohio State, and something that concerns me to the point that I don't know if they're going to get better and rip off a bunch of wins and have a ton of success and win the Big Ten. That concern, their defense isn't very good. And if you go back to 2 years ago when they went 14-0, they must have been 13-0. They win the Big Ten. They go to the college football playoff. They lose to Clemson in that Thrill in the Fiesta Bowl. They had a great defense that year. Jeff Hafley, their coordinator, leaves. He gets the head coaching job at Boston College. Boston College is looking like it is trending in the right direction. They then promote from within a guy named Kerry Coombs to the defensive coordinator position. And to be clear, I don't claim to be an X's and O's savant, okay? I don't claim to know what Ohio State did wrong and if they matched up this way and if the safety blitzed from here. Like, that's not who I am and that's not what I'm about. What I can tell you, though, is there is a pretty direct correlation between when Jeff Hafley left and the defense taking an absolute nosedive once he was gone. This isn't a new thing this year. It really does actually date back to last year. Because when you look back at last year, it's easy to kind of just remember Ohio State wins the Big Ten, makes the college football playoff. That defense was not very good last year. Specifically, they were not good against the pass, 122nd nationally against the pass, 59th nationally in total defense. And part of that was, of course, look, you play Clemson, you play Alabama, you play fewer games. You start to look at it and you say, well, you know, are the stats that bad? Or did you just play really good teams? Well, it's worth noting that they did give up 35 points to Indiana in a game where Indiana, in that game, had almost 500 yards of total offense and almost 500 yards of passing. Then you beat Clemson, then you beat Alabama. And then this year, after last year, where you were 122nd in passing defense and 59th in total defense, you know where Ohio State ranks right now? Nationally, and again, I know they've played some really good teams. I'm not trying to discredit the fact that they have probably played through 2 weeks. I don't think anybody has played tougher competition than Ohio State. But at the same time, you know where Ohio State ranks right now? They rank 112th nationally in total defense. They are right now behind New Mexico State, Kent State, Washington State, Oregon State, Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio, Northern, like you go on and on. They're behind a lot of teams right now defensively. And I understand they played Oregon. I understand they played Minnesota. I understand that maybe Oregon's the second or third best team in the country. 112th in total defense if you're at Ohio State with the resources you have, with the facilities that you have, with the amount that you pay your coaching staff, that's unacceptable. And then, oh, by the way, rush defense specifically, 122nd nationally. They are giving up over 5.3 yards per rush, which means that if the other team just lines up and runs the ball straight at Ohio State, they are getting first downs by the third play of the drive. And so when I look at Ohio State, I don't claim to have all the answers. And I don't claim, by the way, again, to say that, like, oh, it's all falling apart, the kingdom is crumbling, fire right. Like, no, that's not what this is about. But at some point, you do notice a trend, and you do realize something ain't right here. And so what I think is going to be interesting from the Ohio State perspective is how do they adjust? How do they get better specifically on the defensive side of the ball? Because, again, I don't claim to be the X's and O's guru, but when Oregon runs the same play 3 times for a touchdown, and when you give up 35 points in this game, 31 points against Minnesota, I'm just telling you, it is clear that something is not right. The good news for Ohio State, the schedule does loosen up. Their next 4, Tulsa at home, Akron at home, at Rutgers, at Maryland. So they have time to get right before the meat of their schedule where they'll play Penn State. Obviously, Michigan looks half decent this year. I don't think anybody actually expects Michigan to win. But the point is, look, at Ohio State, it's national championship or bust. I mean, Ryan Day said before the season, we expect to win every single game that we play. And there's still a very good chance that they will win every single game that they play the rest of the regular season into the postseason.